Welcome to Conversations That Work with Anita Sandoval, and this is episode 12. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing fear of rejection and the pain of abandonment, and how to overcome it. The goal in this episode is to help you start to break out of an abandonment and rejection mindset, to understand on how the mind is working against you and be at peace with the process of the habit of rejection abandonment loop, and to help self-regulate with that part of you that is hyper-aware, sensitive to the rejection and abandonment cycle. I will offer you a quick tip on how to get unstuck inside those panic situations of abandonment and rejection. Stick around because this episode is for you.
Tired of feeling misunderstood, frustrated, and emotionally disconnected when communicating with other people? This is Conversations That Work with Anita Sandoval, where you can learn how to maintain healthy conversations with the people who matter most. A podcast where you can gain confidence and get tips for having challenging day-to-day conversations that make you feel understood, validated, and heard. Here is your host, a licensed professional counselor specializing in communication skills, strategies, and techniques, Anita Sandoval. Let's start the conversation.
This episode is the first part of a series that will discuss the concepts, techniques, and strategies for fear of rejection and the pain of abandonment that happens within human society. The challenging part is that no one really talks about it. So I decided to incorporate this episode on the ins and outs of what encompasses the fear of rejection, pain of abandonment, and on how you can begin to get out of that mindset into a healthier one of being accepted and feelings that you belong and are lovable. Story time. I remember being in the first grade, and in that time, my first grade teacher, that happened to be my favorite teacher, Mrs. Gonzalez, had us make a craft. The craft was creating a box out of wooden sticks. The craft was for Mother's Day. I remember doing the activity with so much love and care. I was 7 years old, and I remember thinking, I will have something to give to my mother. Soon after, the time came when I finished my craft project. I walked home so excited and ready to give my mother the present. I worked so hard for it and for her to receive it. And I remember going home and getting the present and handing it over to her. She was in her bedroom. So you can imagine my 7-year-old voice telling her, "Mother, I made this gift to you with all my love. And that gift inside is filled with all my love for you." Looking back now, I think my 7-year-old self was just trying to achieve that love, acceptance, and belonging with my mother that she was unable to give me. Now, she was not a bad mother. We come from a generational trauma of abuse and neglect. So she was so broken that she herself did not know on how to love, accept, and belong. Therefore, she could not teach me that or show me that part of affection. But of course, being 7 years old, you can imagine me walking home, envisioning being so happy that she would be filled with love, that she would say thank you and give me a hug. As a 7-year-old, I didn't really ask for much, really just a hug and a thank you. I love it. Much to my dismay, when I handed her the box, she opened it and said, "What is this? There's nothing in here." And then I repeated, but Mom, it's filled with my love. And again, she said, but there's nothing in here. It's empty. So again, but this time with tears in my eyes, I said, Mom, that gift is filled with my love. Oh, she said, it's filled with your love. And then I thought to myself, okay, she gets it now. Okay, she gets it. And then, disappointingly enough, she then started laughing. Oh, it's filled with love. And here I kept looking for something. Filled with love. Oh, okay. And then she just put the craft aside like it was nothing. And there it was. My first memory I can recall of my first irrational belief that I am nothing and I am unlovable. Then the feelings developing soon after were a fear of rejection and pain of abandonment set in for future relationships, friendships, and so on. Stay tuned because there is a part 2 to the 7-year-old story with a happy ending.
Connect with Anita on Facebook. Facebook.com/conversations that work.
Let's begin with the quick tip. The goal here with this quick tip is just to understand how your body senses those thoughts of rejection and abandonment and how the body sensations react to it. The first step in anything is awareness. Awareness when you're starting to feel that sensation of rejection and abandonment. So you want to be aware in how the body reacts to the thoughts of rejection and abandonment. Some thoughts that encompass rejection and abandonment is, I am not good enough. I am not important. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. So what you can do is a body scan and ask yourself, what is underneath this panic of rejection and abandonment? This is where the heart is racing, your hands are shaking, you're noticing with the sensations, how it feels within the nervous system. You feel the sensations until you feel settled, how your heart and hands feel once you feel settled. The goal is to do a reality check on how the body is getting stuck inside those panic situations of abandonment and rejection. Address how the body might be working to keep that rejection and abandonment sensation. It's always good to have a journal with you and then just write down using the fight, flight, and freeze concept. And I can go ahead and provide that cheat sheet for you. How does my body feel whenever I think of the rejection and abandonment? Whenever I have the thoughts of, I am not wanted, I am not lovable because of this situation that happened. Just doing a reality check on the body, how it feels in those situations. Then you begin to release that sensation, that emotion of fear using calming techniques. You want to have the ability to self-regulate from the state of distress to the state of relief. It will help you bring awareness to the body that I am safe and I can tolerate the sensations of the rejection and abandonment. And then it will decrease the sensations, and therefore you will have more courage to face any triggers that encompass the rejection and abandonment. You will be able to be in healthier situations because you are creating a new pattern to your body that it's okay to have rejection, because if you keep moving forward, you will be accepted being in the right type of environment instead of being stuck in that rejection abandonment loop. You write down the reason your body's reacting that way. This is what happened. This is what I'm thinking. These are my emotions. Then you want to say something reassuring to yourself that would make you feel better. And you can say something such as, my breathing gets quicker when I feel in danger. My body breathes quickly to take in lots of oxygen. Oxygen makes it better at fighting or running away. And although breathing quickly makes me feel lightheaded, it is not dangerous. And I can make myself feel better by slowing down my breathing. You are taking control within your sensations. You are acknowledging it, validating that sensation, and then shifting the distress to relief. This is to help you tolerate and feel those sensations.
Conversations at Work with Anita Sandoval, making challenging conversations easy.
The world works in paradox. Things that don't make sense, but they come together. And the biggest obstacle is the fear of the sensations from rejection and abandonment. That unpleasant emotion that is getting stuck in sadness, getting stuck in fear, and getting stuck in anger. The biggest obstacle is the fear of getting stuck in that negative emotion sensation loop. Not the rejection itself or the abandonment, but the pain and the fear that comes with it. Resisting that sensation and emotion will only make it worse. And then you get stuck. It's like a toddler throwing a tantrum. When you ignore the toddler, it's going to get worse. The toddler will just scream more and kick more, throw things. It will get worse because it's your body telling you something here is not right. It's not value-based. It's not something you're aligned with. Why is rejection and pain of abandonment so difficult? Because it feels so painful in the body. There is an intense wave of pain or hyper-arousal. Some describe it as a cringing sensation or a gut punch, like taken out of breath with the triggers that you've been unfairly rejected or abandoned. And the part of the brain that brings in the sensors for pain is the same part for the emotional pain and the physical pain. So it is a real pain because of those sensors in the brain. Both work with emotional and physical. And your body reacts to that. If you create awareness and just let it be and let it happen, it would arise and it would pass. It's that saying, this is why it's a paradox. You have to go through the pain in order to heal from it. You're going to condition the body that this pain of abandonment and this fear of rejection is just that, a pain, a feeling. And once you're able to tolerate it, it will decrease. And then you will send the message to your body that it's okay. It's going to be okay and that you are safe. Therefore, you can go ahead and put yourself in situations that are healthier. The desire is to feel accepted, loved, have a sense of belonging with thoughts of, I am good enough, I am lovable, skills to learn and develop those qualities of acceptance, strength, empathy, wisdom, kindness, and resiliency. The desire is finding ways to self-regulate when you are in a state of dysregulation, awareness to have the capability to take care of yourself whenever there are situations of rejection and abandonment. The issue here is when you have interactions with people where it is not clear what they are thinking, or it's hard to tell what their intentions are, you will automatically go into this negative mindset. It's like having those rose-colored glasses of just rejection, and abandonment. So an example of that trigger of an unknown person walking away from a conversation. Let's assume that you are at a party and you're with people that you know of, but there's one person there that's new. They see you, you're talking, and then they quickly walk away. Because you have your rejection abandonment glasses, you have thoughts of, what is wrong with me? What did I do wrong? You start making a list of reasons why we are deserving of bad behaviors. Then you make a list of all the reasons why you are unworthy and why you were rejected. There's this thing in the part of the brain, it's a bundle of nerves in our brainstem, and it filters out unnecessary information so that the important stuff gets through. It's called the reticular activating system. Another word for it is confirmation bias. This is where you interpret new things and you confirm within your belief system. But if your belief system is with rejection abandonment glasses, anything you see will filter in through those negative mindset of, oh, you see, I knew I was being rejected. I knew they didn't want to be with me. I knew they didn't like me. Because that is what the brain is able to filter through, because that's what you are thinking of. In a neurobiological point of view, the development has to do with the brain signals, trying to figure out what is the intention of the other human being. This is part of our fight, flight, and freeze. So there is a part of our brain that sends the brain signals to see if this situation is a threat or if it's safe to be there. And one of the things that the brain always tries to do is figure out, okay, what is the intention of the other person? But if you have a negative mindset, it filters through just getting information of I'm not good enough. I'm not wanted. I'm not lovable. You get locked in seeing rejection in places where it is not. And then the unpleasant emotions, getting stuck in sadness, getting stuck in fear, getting stuck in anger, just keep creating a habit over and over again.
Sign up for up-to-date information and resources at conversationsatwork.org.
When you're able to regulate your nervous system, now you're ready to try new things. One of the techniques is to set a goal for an event or a place you're going to be at and just speak to 3 new people. It does not matter how it goes. It's not about the other people. It is about you developing your skills and the stress tolerance. You start building in the confidence that only my opinion matters. You start setting very limited goals for yourself to focus on what you're doing with the things that are aligned with your values, regardless of how other people react. And you feel good about them because you are value aligned and doing behaviors that are consistent within your values. You focus on those goals instead of focusing on what other people think and then believe that they're rejecting you because you're not catering to their needs. You're wanting to help the brain and mind to see how unrewarding it is to be constantly hypervigilant toward rejection because it gets to be exhausting. Some of the characteristics for people who fear rejection and the pain of abandonment is where they focus only on the area that looks like rejections and filter out all the other positive messages and examples to contrary with the same experienced event. There is usually general anxiousness in social settings, and there is hypervigilance towards rejection not helpful for them in the present moment. One of the strategies is to just focus on the positive interactions in this situation and be aware that because you have your filter system through the rejection abandonment glasses, that's just programming. That's just something that is filtering, but it is not you. And you just say things, a phrase such as, nope, this negative thoughts, it's not my problem, not my problem. And you filter out the negative. Think of it as a container to be shipped to problem land, and it will work itself out there and show up in a positive form to you later in Solution Island. But you disregard all the rejection and abandonment, but focus on the positive interactions in these situations. Another characteristic of assuming what the other person is thinking and trying to figure out the intention of the other person. Then they turn to default thinking of, oh, I'm not lovable. I'm not wanted. That's why that happened. You're gravitated towards people that are not clear on what they're thinking, or it's hard to tell what their intentions are because it will go into that default rejection abandonment glasses. One example of healthy default thinking is using the same trigger that you're at a party, you know the people around you, and you have this one unknown person that doesn't really show much affect. You don't know what their intention is. So then the healthy default thinking, the healthy thoughts would be, oh, they are probably preoccupied with something else. They do seem a little distant. They're probably having a bad day. If they act a little odd, they must be going through something. Versus the unhealthy thoughts of, oh, they must be bored. It's me, I'm boring them. They don't like me. They don't want to be with me. They wish that I wasn't here. Maybe I did something and they didn't like it. Once you notice that awareness that you're back into that rejection abandonment glasses, you can then tell yourself, oh, I'm making this assumption with the thoughts and feelings and the pattern of my fear of rejection and the pain of abandonment. With the abandonment glasses, you spend most of the time feeling rejected, left out, or excluded. You tend to view the world in a way of being rejected. It's a colored perception of being shunned and excluded. They're not pure reality. It's just a glasses that just shows that. It's what you pay attention to. It's your perception. It's how you react to that with those faulty thinking. And then you interpret ambiguous things with, I'm not wanted, I'm not important, there's something wrong with me. One of the myths for people who have rejection and abandonment thoughts is that you have to click and make a connection with every single person. But the reality is you don't want to click and connect with every single person, and that is okay. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. You cannot control how other people can react. The only person you have control of is yourself.
Connect with Anita on Facebook. Facebook.com/conversationsthatwork.
Using the confirmation bias, what you tend to do is then make a list of all the reasons why you are unworthy and why you were rejected, further validating that pain and fear emotion and increasing it. One of the questions you can ask yourself is, what fuels this fear of rejection and pain of abandonment with you? What are the habits that keep the fear of rejection and abandonment present? So another strategy that you can do is use a third person objective. Take yourself out of the equation and just narrate the situation. Is this the only perception? Is this the only point of view there? Is there another perspective that I am missing? You want to enter into the shoes of someone you admire and want to become that ideal self, and then role play. How would they see the situation? You want to take a step back and broaden the view, magnify that point of view on the situation with different people. What would a journalist do? What would the person at the scene do? How would the host see this Some questions you can ask yourself is, can people have their own issues? What kind of issues can other people have that will send the wrong message to you with rejection, abandonment, rose-colored glasses? The consequence in staying in that fear of rejection and pain of abandonment loop is that there is an increased effect on the healing and moving forward into healthier relationships and not finding your sense of self. There's a lot of avoidance behavior such as clinginess and neediness. You stay in the hyper-vigilant towards rejection, it becomes exhausting and you tend to use up a lot of relationships. You cannot maintain long, stable relationships. You're sensitive to this rejection and you cannot hold on to a job, which makes it exhausting to the individual. You might even have a list of names that you have blocked from friend list or relationship list. It begins to expand over time, and then the availability for connection, fulfillment, it begins to shrink. There is a failure not only in your personal relationship, but in work relationships as well. The goal here is to find an effective method to help you to start to pull back on those negative filtering thoughts, to break out of that abandonment mindset, to shift away from that negative reaction. Find different ways to evaluate the situation that are based on things that you can control. Focus on what you are doing opposed to focusing on the outcome that you cannot control when people react to certain situations. And focus on the behaviors, sensations that are keeping you stuck in an endless cycle of abandonment and rejection. And one of the main things here is after you know the awareness of what is filtering through the negative rose-colored abandonment rejection glasses, is to regulate the nervous system when it wants to increase, instead of fueling that negative energy with that negative thoughts and emotions. You want to be able to tolerate the ability to walk into the sensation of being rejected and not take it personally, that it is not about you. Why does this happen? What are the causes of the sensitivity to rejection and abandonment? If you grew up in an inconsistent of reinforced messages, both positive and negative. For example, maybe parents might alternatively be loving you and then screaming at you for whatever reason you didn't do your chores. Especially if the parents themselves have issues with substance abuse or other mental health disorders and they themselves are dysregulated, it will send off inconsistent messages to you. When there are no stable sense of self or sense of attachment, this causes sensitivity to rejection and abandonment. You can get locked in to seeing those rejection in places where it is not. So using the third person objective, rather than personalize with it, you see it as an observer and not as someone who was identifying with it within self mode. So then you are able to observe the sensation detached within the trigger, the situation, and not within yourself. Therefore, it will simply be a sensation. And yes, it will increase, but then you're able to tolerate it, increase the resiliency to it, and it will pass. Soon after, you will be able to recognize it as something familiar where nothing bad is happening. The body is able to tolerate it so much more effectively, and you have the capability to problem solve and move forward.
Conversations at Work with Anita Sandoval, making challenging conversations easy.
So let me give you the second half to the story. Many years later, I was in my 30s and my mother was already attending an adult daycare center. I recall that one day she came to visit and said she had something for me. She had given me a gift-wrapped box with a heart made out of felt on top of it. And it was clear red ribbon tied around it with gold wrapping. She hands it to me and says, "I made this for you. It is filled with my love." I look at it and I hold it up to my face and eyes, and I look at it intently, remembering that day I was 7 years old. And I smiled and I said, "I love it. Thank you so much for this beautiful gift. I will keep it with me forever." And I hugged her really tight. You see, I soon realized within my adult self that my mother did the best she could to show her love. She was really so broken from all the generational trauma of abuse and neglect that she had no idea on how to show love and affection to anyone. However, I, on the other hand, was able to overcome those challenges, learn, grow, and change for myself and for my children, and now for her. So in the end, I knew that I am enough, I am lovable, I am important, I am accepted, and I belong. And I will leave you with this quote: "Become so confident in who you are that no one's behavior, opinion, or rejection can affect you." By Brad Turnbull. Until our next conversation.
Thank you for listening to Conversations at Work with Anita Sandoval. Know someone who needs help in having healthy conversations? Share this episode and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until our next conversation.